So this morning we're going to look at Matthew chapter 16. Take your Bibles, turn to Matthew chapter 16. On a day-to-day basis, we are constantly dealing with the same thing over and over and over again. Doors. We're either going through a door to get into a room, or get out of a room, or go into a building, or get out of a building. We're also dealing with trying to get into the right door, trying to get the right door open. If you're like me, I always choose the wrong one. If I'm supposed to pull, I'm usually standing there, the one pushing. And then my family and everybody else says, hey, look at that big dummy trying to get in the wrong door. So that's usually the way that I end up with going through doors. But there also are doors in life. Doors of opportunity. There's doors of breakthrough. There's doors of advancement, new territory. Doors of change. Doors of different seasons of our lives. There's doors to respond correctly. A doorway to a new level of faith, or an entry point to win a victory. And yet it seems sometimes we struggle to enter the right door to gain access to what God or everything God has in store for us. Many of us appear to be stuck on the wrong side of that door, simply because we fail to learn how to get these doors open, or we fail to learn how to open what should be already open to us. Jesus spoke about doors to his disciples. I think he said what he said to them has very large implications for us today, and should reveal to us that perhaps our challenge is not the recognition of the door or of a door, but we fail to discern what type of door we're standing in front of. The doors in our life represent either opportunity or obstacle. We deal with either entering or exiting. So Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 through 19. Verses 13 through 19. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So in these verses, Jesus has an interesting conversation with his disciples. The question he asked them was probably different than any other question that he had put forth to his disciples before. Jesus asked them who he was to them personally. Jesus forces them to come to a conclusion of who Jesus was. Peter has a moment of clarity. Jesus has a moment of revelation and embraces Jesus' true identity for himself. He declares, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Now, the Hebrew word Messiah means the Anointed One, or the one who is God. Peter did not only say God, but he said Son of the living God. Calling Jesus Son of the living God also equated Jesus with God. In the Jewish culture, to say Jesus was the Son of God is to say Jesus was God. To Peter, Jesus was the Anointed One who came from God, the one who is God. At the mention of that revelation, and at the moment we ourselves embrace that truth in our hearts, Jesus makes us a promise. Jesus' response is what intrigues me with this questioning with the disciples, because if you have accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, then you too have had to come to the same conclusion in the revelation that Jesus is the Son of the living God. You see the implications as it pertains to doors that we are faced with every day. You will have to complete and free access to God's kingdom, keys to open any and every door. No more barriers between heaven and earth or earth and heaven. He said, I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. No more barriers. But how many of us see ourselves, find ourselves face to face every day in life, and we seem to not be able to get in the door? But first, we have to understand the types of doors that we are looking at, types of doors that are part of this statement. We have to have the keys. So the first thing I want you to write down there are some doors that only God can open. There's some doors that only God can open. This is the locked door in our lives. This door that you come up against that only God can open. You can kick, you can scream, you can run into it, you can pry it open, you can try to pick the lock, and nothing you or anyone else can do to get in this door open, to get that door open. We usually think this is when God is cheating us out of something, or is keeping us from something, or He's trying to keep something hidden from us. And then at some point later in life, you realize that it's usually God was just protecting us. He was protecting us from us. Locked doors that you thought were right at the time, but now you realize if you'd gotten the door open, you'd be miserable right now. Or you would have missed out on blessings that God had in store for you because you entered the wrong door. It's so crazy important that we are able to discern that the locked door is probably God telling us, no, this is not the door for you. This is not the time for you to go in it. This is not where you're supposed to be. Or you would have missed out on a blessing that God had in store because you entered the wrong door. If we go through the doors and we don't recognize that we have wasted our energy, our efforts, and our time trying to get through something that God has already determined to keep us out. You know, it's those times that you know, hey, I'm supposed to be here. God says no. I'm supposed to go through this door. God says no. There's this job opportunity that I know that God says no. There's this thing that I need to do. God says no. But we are sometimes like our own kids, right? We tell our kids no. Please? No. Can I have it? No. Please let me have it. No. But yet we become frustrated with God when God sees what's on the other side of the door. God sees later in life. God sees a week down the road, a month down the road, a year down the road. He sees that. But yet we are so interested in getting in this door right now. God is there to tell us no. It's like a door that doesn't have a handle on this side that we want to get in. The only handle is on the other side where God is. And God says, I'm not letting you in this door. The locked doors in our lives. Second thing I want you to write down. There are some doors that we should be waiting for just the right time to enter. Time locked doors. The time locked doors are those doors that are only open in certain times of our life. On God's timetable. These doors are all about seasons of our lives. There are certain doors that if you fail to exercise wisdom and understand times and seasons, you will miss the opportunity to get in that door. This door usually comes from an answer of God of wait. We read the passage of Scripture that deals with the harvest. They're wrong sometimes because we want to see there's a seed time and then there's a harvest. But if you know anything about gardens, you've planted a garden yourself, or you know somebody that's planted a garden, you know that once you create that garden, you put the seeds in the row, you put the seeds in the ground. You don't go back the next day and harvest what you just planted. You seed the garden and then what? You've had to wait. You've got to wait for the rain. You've got to wait for the sun. You've got to wait for the right time to what? To harvest what you planted. It's the same thing in our lives. We've got to have a time of waiting. Some of you are not getting through the door because you failed to walk through at the right time. We hate that time of waiting. We are very impatient, then we get frustrated with God. Listen to this statement. The opportunities of a lifetime are only good in the lifetime of the opportunity. Listen, the opportunities of a lifetime are only good in the lifetime of the opportunity. David. When David went to go fight the Goliath, he had to be ready at that time. I think if David was early, he would not have defeated Goliath. I think if David was late getting there, he would not have defeated Goliath. Because that was the time that God says, okay, David, you go take down that giant. It had to be perfect on God's time. The children of Israel, when they entered the promised land, they had to have 40 years of waiting in the desert. They had to have a time of waiting. They had to have a time that was perfect, and they had to be ready at that time when God said, now it's time to go in the promised land. Look at Peter. Even Peter, Jesus told him, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome. Before Peter was ready to walk through that door. At one time, Peter says, Jesus, I will die for you. We see several days later that Peter denied Jesus. And then after that, Peter had to watch Jesus crucified. Peter had to watch Jesus be buried. That time of waiting, that time where it was not right for Peter, and all of a sudden, Peter had to wait until the right time to walk through that time-locked door, the day of Pentecost. Peter had to be ready to stand up and preach. Peter had to be ready. He had to be ready to walk through the door. We in our lives, there's times in our lives where God is saying, wait. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying yes right now. I'm saying you've got to be able to wait. But we as humans, we as who we are, hate to wait. Who tries to find the longest line in Walmart to stand in? What do? We walk up and down that main aisle, right? If you got kids there, you go see what that line looks like. Right? Who likes to get and wait in traffic? That's why you see people weaving in and out of traffic, weaving in and out of the cars. If you're like me, I'm going down the road, that line is moving quicker. So what do? We get in that line. I get in that line, and what happens to that line? It stops. I'm like, ugh. Why did this line stop? It was moving so good. We hate waiting. We don't like to wait. Some of us miss the particular season because we get frustrated and we get tired of waiting on God. Then we frantically try to push the door open. But it's at the wrong time, wrong season, and we can miss out on what God has for us. Because we couldn't be patient, because we couldn't trust God's timing is always perfect. God's timing is always perfect. He's never late, He's never early. He is perfect on time. If you're unwilling to wait, we try to force our way in the door on our timeline because we are early or because we are late. We miss out. And some of us are faced with this door. We aren't ready. We aren't sensitive. We become self-consumed. We become distracted. We become so busy that we wait too long and we miss out. Let me tell you something. Let me make this real clear. Timing is essential. You need to wait for the right season at the right time. There's been times in my life, there's been times in our family's life where we failed to wait and we missed what God has for us. Because we look back and say, only if we had waited. But I think I know what's good for me. I think I know what's good for my family. And I'm thinking, okay, God, we have waited too long. God's just saying, wait a little more. Okay, God, I've waited long enough. Something's got to happen. Something's got to give. God said, wait. Wait. And in those times that we have waited as a family, I have waited in personal things, then God says, okay, now is the time. And I've got to be ready to go through it. Still, some of us, we wait and then we say, okay, God, I'm tired of waiting. And we miss what God has for us. Timing is essential. Timing is the essence. Waiting. You look through the scriptures, you look through the Bible, and you see times where God has told people, God has urged people, God has said, okay, you need to just take it easy, take a step back, take a deep breath, and wait. Next thing I want you to write down is this. Finally, we are still some doors we need to be using a key or a code to get in. The key encoded doors in our lives. I'm discovering that the most common type of door that we face is also the one that we fail to recognize the most. As a result, we fail to access all that God has for us. These are doors that require a code, a key. Some of them require a combination. Remember that conversation that Jesus had with his disciples. He says that all the doors will be open. However, just prior to that statement, he indicates that some of these doors are going to be locked. How do we know some of these doors are going to be locked? Because what does he say he's going to give them? He indicates that by letting them know that there's going to be keys. And he doesn't say, plural, a key. He doesn't say, I'm going to give you a key that's a master lock for all of them. No, he says, I'm going to give you keys, plural. I'm going to give you multiple keys. I think our problem is that too often we want a master key in life. They can be used whenever, however, whatever door we come against, we want to use that one key. Or we use the wrong key, and the doors that are supposed to be unlocked remain locked. Then we begin to question the power of the key that we use rather than checking to see if we're at the right door. Listen to this. There are certain keys that open certain doors. We're thinking, duh, right? Case in point, true story. Me and Amy had gotten married. It was a very long day. Very, very long day. We were late getting left from reception. We were late getting the car packed to go away for the honeymoon. Got on the road, started becoming late in the evening. Like, okay, let's try to find a hotel. It was back before you could go to the internet or your phone and, hotel near me, right? And then you book it, you see the price. This is the time that you had to pull underneath the porch. Somebody had to go in and says, do you have a room available? Yes. Okay, well, how much? And that took forever to do that, right? Instead of now, which is great, you look on your phone, get your hotel, see how much it is. If they got one, book it and go. We got a hotel room. We went in the car, got our stuff. And we went to the door to get in. We had a card. Put the card in, pull it out. Nothing happened. Put the card in, pull it out, start, how you do, jiggle the handle. Start, pushing on the door, kept doing that. I'd get 5 minutes probably. And all of a sudden, a little old lady peeked her head out behind the curtain and says, "You're in the wrong room!" And at that time, the lady at the front desk come running around the corner and saying, "You're in the wrong room, you're in the wrong room." Scared that lady to death. It was actually funny, but it's like, okay, sorry. We thought we were at the right room. Me and her both. This is the right number. Yes, this is the right number. This is where we're supposed to be. Yes, this is the door we're supposed to be at. But what happened? It wasn't the door we were supposed to be at. When we went to the door that we were supposed to be at, the door that the key was coded for, stuck the key in, pulled it out, green light come on, and in we went. We thought we were at the right door. We were certain, we were positive, but no matter how many times we tried to put that key in, I did it, and Love my wife to death. She says, here, you're not doing it right. Okay. You put the key in, me try it again. It's not opening. No matter how many times we've done that, we could have done it until the morning came, and that door would still not have been opened. Why? Because we were not at the right door. We did not have the right key, the key to that door. In our lives, there are places, there are doors that we're in front of, and we think we're supposed to be there because we have a key, but that key does not fit that door. That's where we got to step back and we say, okay, God, which door did you tell me to go in? And when you get to that door, the door that God had told you to begin with, you stick your key in, pull it out, you get to go in. The Bible is full of codes. The Bible is full of keys. The Bible is full of combinations for our life, for us to get through life and get to enjoy those things, get to experience those things that God has for us. But some of us, a lot of us, like me, want to know that we got the right number, we've got the right door, we've got the right key, and we stand there and we get frustrated with God. God, this is where you told me to be. This is the key that you told me to use. It's not, because I'm hearing what I want to hear. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm at the door that I want to be at, and it's not where God wants me to be. Using a combination lock. It's got one that's got the numbers, right? No matter how many times you put in a number that you want to put in that lock, it's not going to open until what? You put in the right number. You put it in the right way. You do the right combination, and that lock's going to open. Not one that I've determined. It's not a code that I've made up. It's the right one. See, it all comes down to listening to God, waiting on God, letting God be the one to direct our lives and show us where we need to go. But see, it all starts at the very beginning when Peter says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. We can get in any type of door that we think we want to get in, but until God has given us a key, God has given us that code, we have come into our hearts and our lives personally and says, God, personally to me, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. We get no keys, no combinations. It starts when we come to the realization that God, Jesus, is the Son of the living God, the Messiah in our life, the Anointed One in our lives. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's not where I want to be. It's not what I want to do. It's where God wants. And listen, there may be job opportunities that you know, okay, this is where I know I need to be. This is the job I need to take. And God shuts the door and says, no, you don't need to be there. And you get frustrated at God. Or something just doesn't seem right. It may be something like buying a house or buying a car. Me and Amy a lot of times have gone to, when we're looking for cars, go to a car, we test drive it, we love it. This is where we need it. This is the car we need to buy. And then something doesn't work out right with it, and we're like, that's what we wanted. But if we'd bought that car, if we'd bought that house, a month, 6 months, a year down the road, we could have lost a job. We could have had a medical issue. And now I don't have the money, because I don't have a job, to pay for that car, to pay for that house. God shuts doors. God doesn't let us in the door. God gives us the combination because He sees in the future. He sees what's coming next. We see the here and now. We can't get frustrated with God when all God is doing is looking out for what's best for us. Sometimes we continue to try to open doors with the wrong key, or we try to use the wrong code. If we keep waiting on the master key, you will remain frustrated and you remain locked out to wonderful blessings that God has for us. All the great things God has for us. It's all about keys. It's all about the right door. It's all about being ready for what God has for us. not on my timetable. Not with any key that I want to try to get up. How do I make sure I'm at the right door? How do I make sure I've got the right key? How do I make sure I got the right combination? It goes back to spending time with God, reading scriptures. Make sure in my heart that I've said, Jesus, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. I've got to have that connection with God. I've got to have that close connection with God where I know, I can discern this is not the right door, but this one is. This is not the right time. This is the right time. And I'm ready to walk through that door. Are you close to God? Are you connected with God? Doors are everywhere in our lives. We walk through them, physically and spiritually. We walk through them every single day. You've got to be ready. Jesus is the only one who holds the keys and the correct code. Some of us are using the wrong key, or we're trying to go through the wrong door, or we're trying to go through at the wrong time. Jesus has it all for us. It all goes back to Jesus. Everything goes back to Jesus. Because he is the Son of the living God. He is God. We've got to trust his time. Perfect.